What have you seen genuinely shitty people do that they thought was perfectly acceptable? When people go out of their way to be shitty to homeless people, it makes my blood boil. They're already having a hard enough time without your bullshit. Also, homelessness can happen to anyone. If you can't be compassionate, keep to yourself. People who throw themselves pity parties. I had an ex-friend where she would constantly say shitty things about me and would use insult humor on me, but if I retaliated, she would cry dramatically and would get everyone to crowd around her. I'd then have to deal with stares, as if I kicked a puppy the rest of the night. I tend to work higher up in companies, and some of the stuff that CEOs and other high level people do is just absurd because they are so out of touch with reality. You may not realize this, but the highest paid people in the company where you work very likely have different health insurance and benefits than you do. They probably get way better health insurance and double or triple the paid days off that you get. Even though they are aware that you have way less, they still don't really understand what that's like. I saw one of them talking bad about an employee who was at work despite going through treatments for a major illness. He kept saying she was a workaholic and shouldn't be working. I pointed out that she was working because she doesn't have any more days off and she'll get fired and lose her income and her health insurance if she stops showing up. I saw them talking bad about someone else who came back from maternity leave after 2 weeks. I said, yeah, she used up all of her PTO. A lot of people have less than that. They live in a different reality than the people who work for them, and they have no idea most of the time. They genuinely don't understand what it's like to make minimum wage or to struggle. They think that you are able to afford to go on several nice vacations a year on your $10 an hour salary. They don't understand you might not be able to afford a nice wardrobe to wear to work, or that you might not be able to afford to get new glasses. Leaving their shopping cart anywhere but the cart return. This blew my mind. In Europe, some shops have a contraption. You have to put a coin to unlock the shopping cart from the cart corral, like $1-2. That means people needs to put the cart back there to get this coin back. First time I went grocery shopping in the US, I saw plenty of carts abandoned everywhere. I found weird to be able to take the cart for free. Later, I was driving the cart in the parking and the cart just locked. I thought I caught some paper in the wheels and this woman told me I was too far from Target and it locked. The European in me laughed thinking she was joking. She was not. I was working at a bar that was in the same complex of several restaurants and entertainment establishments. Tons of staff members from the other businesses would come drink at my place after their shift regularly, and I had a great rapport with pretty much everyone. There was a hostess that worked at an upscale bowling alley / lounge across from me. She had been into my bar at least a dozen times, and the layout of my work bar was very basic. It was essentially a giant square with restrooms on one wall. Anyway, this girl come in and starts slutting it up on some of the male servers from a restaurant in the complex. They buy her a bunch of drinks, and I ended up cutting her off because I didn't want anything bad to happen to her. A ton of customers came in right after, so I got slammed as I was the only bartender on duty. Out of the corner of my eye, I see the door to our cold storage room open. There was nobody on duty that would need to go in there, and it's very clearly marked employees only. I finish helping a customer and run to open the storage room. There is the hostess, with her dress hiked up, squatting on something. She had removed the 6 packs from a case of beer, folded the cardboard flaps in, and made herself a makeshift toilet. She pissed all over the fucking storage room floor. As I threw her out, she said she was friends with the guy who owned the whole complex and was going to have me fired for being so rude by throwing her out. I just told her she was banned and to have a great night. I didn't make a big stink about it, but apparently word got back to her boss and he came by to talk to me about it. He said he gave her the ultimatum of she could come by and apologize to me or be fired. I never did get an apology from her. I used to work at a rent-a-car place at an airport. It was off-site, where you had to take a shuttle bus to our location. We had a little lobby where people could sit and wait for their cars or the shuttle back to the airport. People would leave stuff behind. One of the perks of the job was reading some of the books left behind. One man left behind a biography of a non-commissioned officer in the US Marines during the Vietnam conflict. For the life of me, I can't remember the author's name or the book's title. About a week later, the man comes back and asks about the book he left behind. I was reading it and give it back to him with a smile. After all, it wasn't mine. He asks, "What about the $100 bill that was inside?" I was shocked this guy was now trying to scam me, or the rent-a-car company, out of money by making up a story about me stealing money. I was infuriated, but managed to explain to him I found it with no money inside. He left without pressing the issue. Lucky for him, because 2 other agents and myself were ready to throw him out and make him walk back to the airport. There are shitty people out there who aren't happy with getting their books back without trying to scam a stranger. I worked with a guy I really liked until he told me with great pride how he beat his wife into a coma. He was genuinely proud. I thought I was going to retch. What the actual what? Just what? Jesus. Did you consider reporting him to the police? I actually did, but it had happened in another state many years ago, and they couldn't be bothered. He also said, and this was disgusting, that her 2 brothers were sitting in a car watching. He said, he yelled to them, "Any one of you can take her place," and then laughed when neither got out of the car. I never spoke another word to him. It literally curdled my stomach, like I thought I was going to puke on the spot. I understand violence and the occasional need for it, but not against somebody who can't defend themselves, and I never started. I'd so much rather laugh and walk off than rise to a fight. Not me but my mother. She works banquet bartenders at a high-end casino and gets to see the most ridiculous things rich assholes think are perfectly fine. She had one guy finish his drink at her bar, not tip, and then grab a new glass from a waitress walking by and actually took money from my mother's tip jar and gave it to the waitress. He legitimately turned back and had no clue why my mother looked so dumbfounded. Another time the CEO that owned the casino gave a speech and got too close to the mic, which caused that loud squealing feedback. He finished his speech and promptly fired the entire audio team on the spot for screwing up his speech loud enough for the entire room to hear him. Final story was from when a charitable client gave all the bartenders a $1,000 tip to be evenly distributed for their hard work. Guy gave it to my mother's manager, walked away, and she and almost all her coworkers watched as her boss pocketed the entire thing and waltzed off. I'm an adjunct professor, and I can't stand it when other professors make fun of their students around each other. And I don't necessarily mean complaining about a student that's being a pain in the ass, though that might not be the healthiest thing either. It mostly just bugs me when instructors make fun of their students' work. I teach English/creative writing, especially when it's clear that the student was probably trying their best, which they usually are. In my experience. I mean, yes. Some of the students have never written a story before, and the results can be a little bit funny, but their learning and writing is a very personal thing for a lot of people, and it doesn't seem cool to make fun of them. I guess some professors think it doesn't matter because they're not saying it to the student's face, and bad writing can be really funny. I get it, but these are your students. They're coming to you for help. It's like if your doctor made fun of you for being fat behind your back. I don't know, it just seems a bit shitty to me. Say to my wife, well, at least my baby will go to heaven. We were at a weekly group session for parents of deceased children. This woman asked my wife how our son died and replied with that when she found out he died of an overdose. Too bad she won't be going there to see her baby. I worked in the office part of a warehouse. One of the gals that worked with me was super cool, so we ate lunch together every day. One day she goes to get a lunch from the fridge and someone else's lunch falls out. The container hits the floor and the lid pops off, spilling out the food. I was floored and disgusted when she scooped the food back in, put the lid on, and slid it back into the fridge. There was so much nasty in that floor, and when I brought it up she shrugged, saying they wouldn't be upset because they didn't know. I asked around and figured out who the lunch belonged to, told him what happened, and have him a little money to go buy something else to eat. She thought I was crazy for giving a shit. treat the elderly in nursing homes badly. I work at a nursing home, and while I have a lot of awesome coworkers who are very good at their job, I also have a lot of trashy ones. To give an example, I one time overheard one of the patients say to a coworker that she really needed to go to the toilet. This lady was in a wheelchair and needed help. My coworker said, "Well, you're wearing a diaper, aren't you? Those can hold up to 8 liters. Just pee already." I was shocked. My coworker went to have her smoke and I immediately helped the lady in the wheelchair. Yes, she did wear a specialty inner pants, but a lot of my coworkers don't seem to understand that these kind of pants are to prevent accidents, not to encourage incontinence. The sad thing is, this kind of things are very hard to prove, especially when the patients have dementia, like they do in the nursing home I work at. I have had multiple conversations with the manager about this kind of things, resulting into absolutely nothing done about it. I think the shortage in staff doesn't help with this problem. Insult their children when they don't excel at X activity. Visiting back home and ended up listening to my sister beg my mom not to get mad because she had a B+. My wife told my sister how awesome it was that she had all A's and a B. Mom immediately says it's not good at all and reams my sister. It's super frustrating. I had a friend with parents like that when I was doing karate. We were like 11 and the karate school was big, so they held annual competitions. He and I end up matriculating to the top of our age division for sparring, and first place would be decided by our match. To add some context, I had been doing karate at a different dojo for a few years until I joined that one. Before my sister and I came along, he and his sister were like the shining stars of the place, if that makes sense. Super competitive with lots of awards. My sister and I weren't into competitions and were really only competitive with each other. We participated in this one because we were new. Anyways, it is 3 rounds and I overwhelmed my friend in the first. He always started with the same move, so it was easy to overtake him. I remember looking at the crowd and seeing his dad, red-faced, screaming at his son, full on psycho. And the look on my friend's face was so angry too, but completely directed at himself. My parents are the kind to love me and be proud of whatever it is I do, and only cared that I try. I knew everything would be okay if I lost, but I just got really bad feeling for what would happen if he lost. I'll let him win. Never told anybody about this. You have a message from the person. Like and sub for nothing.